All right, it's that time again.
Indeed it is, Jay. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Jayborino has once again ranked every Legends of Arkain character like a crazy person. And I've decided, since we did this last time, why not make a reaction again? Let's go right into it.
I said it was coming.
You did?
It's an Arkain character tier list. The final one for me.
The final one. Interesting. I wonder if that will remain that way or if that will change at some point in the future.
Look, we could wait until the entire series is over. To be fair, we're very close.
Right.
But I actually think it's more interesting to do it now because we can still speculate about some of these characters. Makes for a more interesting discussion.
Fair.
And yeah, sure, some characters, once we see how everything wraps up, might go up or down a few tiers, of course. But, again, I think now it's going to give us something pretty final. First thing we'll do, S tier must be renamed to Sliced Bread as per tradition.
Naturally.
Because any character that goes in there is the best thing since sliced bread. And we get started with Uncorrupted Eale.
Alright, I don't have the old tier list in my head right now. I'm pretty sure Uncorrupted Eale used to be at the very bottom or one of the low tiers. And Corrupted Eale was on top. He's already hinted in the past, in this reaction to the cinematic, that it might make a big switch for Uncorrupted Eale. And I guess that might also mean something for Corrupted Eale, according to other hints he has given in the past. But let's find out.
Now, I don't remember exactly what I did, or where every character ended up in my original tier list. That was back at the end of Act 3 or something. It was a while ago. But I'm pretty sure Uncorrupted Eale went in like D or E tier, which I also think we have more tiers here than we had originally. I don't think I'm going to use all these. So probably won't use all these, but I don't know. Maybe we can reuse some of them for something else. I think Uncorrupted Eale, it's all about your point of view between corrupted and uncorrupted. I used to say Uncorrupted Eale represents the worst traits of Eale. She's insecure, she's got something to prove, and then she makes mistakes because of that drive. She didn't need to do it. She had Salamar pulling her in the right direction. And she succumbed. But now that we know that Uncorrupted Eale actually comes back and takes control back to her mind, she had something to prove. And you know what? She did. She did it. So Eale, you get an A for Eale.
Come on.
And then Corrupted Eale, in the biggest swap in character tier list history, goes in that D tier.
Okay. Eale. Okay, Jay. Gotcha. Yeah, I can't say I'm very surprised about it, but I'm pretty sure when he explained why he put Eale very low last time, I still remember that one line, like, where he was like, Uncorrupted Eale is a baby. And now it seems to have switched around, which is very interesting to see.
Oh, yes. That's what happened. Corrupted Eale is the one. That's the source of all those bad feelings and insecurities that drove her to do the wrong things. But then Uncorrupted Eale came out and she took control back over her life. It's a great story. Great arc. Now look, we don't know what's going to happen with Eale. She's just going to... What if Uncorrupted Eale, she had her nice little arc, and then she tries to show up and help and then just dies? It's possible that maybe she'd go down to B tier if that was the case. But as of right now, very exciting to see Eale in the A tier. Amari.
There is no way she doesn't go in sliced bread. He's been talking about her being his queen so many times. There is no way.
Look, I'm glad that this was early because I can do this now instead of having to move a billion pictures. But you're all going to shift down. A tier, welcome to the sliced bread tier. A tier. B tier, C tier, D tier. Okay, E tier has been eliminated. Just like the American grading system. Because up here now must be...
Of course. Okay.
my based orc queen. That's where she belongs. Look, I liked Amari a lot in the second orc book. Probably my favorite character from the second orc book.
I still cannot get over that. I should have known. I should have made her call herself not Supreme Leader, but something like Jayborino's Queen or something after all. God damn it.
If not the second books in general. But she was very easy to like. Now, I feel like there's been a concerted effort to make Amari less easy to like. I'm not saying she's less likable. I'm saying there's a lot of things happening that make you question whether you should like her. And you know what? It's done the opposite to your boy. She's great. I think that the reason I liked her a lot in the second orc book is it always felt like she was doing the right thing or trying to do the right thing. She would negotiate in good faith and it would just always work. In the true story, I think it is more realistic that that doesn't always work. But I would still argue that Amari tries, which is more than most other main characters, if not all other main characters, can say. Amari does definitely try, I think, to build alliances properly, like via mutual respect, assisting each other, having shared goals. That being said, yes, there is now a weird religion where she is a central, creepy, populist figurehead. Not great, refers to herself as Supreme Leader.
As I said, I should have called her Jayborino's Queen instead, apparently.
Not great, probably, but from my perspective, it is great. Alright? Yeah, lean on Inara to do all your weird stuff, okay? Have all that get dumped on someone else, and then you can get rid of her later when you can blame everything on her. But she's done all the things you need her to do. Oh yes, great strategy. Using religion to control people? That's amateur. Amateur hour. Look, Gardon's gonna come up with some weird black dragon religion later too, alright? Amari's just ahead of the curve. Here's the thing. If you try and be too good in the world of Arkain, generally you get heavily punished for it, and you're probably just very stupid. What I like about Amari is her end goals, I think, are very admirable. And she generally is using methods that are decent, though sometimes she's got to get sneaky with it. But my point is, I think Amari is accomplishing an end goal and creating a really cool nation, and she's very effective at it, while not being an enormous piece of shit. And again, I think that's a leg above most other, if not all other, main characters in Arkain. That's why I really like Amari. I think the Tribal Dominion is a really, really cool faction. I think it's a nation that is what most other nations in this fictional universe would aspire to be. Like, for example, I think Jayborino Reborn, very cool, technologically superior, great strategists, you know, run by Gardon, who is generally very successful. But Gardon's kind of an asshole. I don't think Amari's an asshole. I think Amari's great. And also, Jayborino Reborn is like one of those places where it's great if you're in the in-group. Whereas the Tribal Dominion seems like it's specifically going out of its way to not have an in-group. And I think that's really great. Okay, that's enough about Amari. But she gets her own tier, okay?
What he's saying here about Jayborino, basically, not having, well, an in-group. I mean, if they join Xehanort, this is something that happens in a prosed true story anyway, in some of the short stories, that people join it from the outside. They are treated the same way as those who are or have been there for a longer period of time, basically. Either he's saying that they are more peaceful to groups outside of their own group, because on the inside, I wouldn't say it's that different for both, honestly.
Okay, Aridon? A for Aridon? Look,
Really?
I don't like him.
Yeah.
But Aridon is one of the most impactful characters on the story, and I think he is very interesting, especially after what we've learned from Rogthel, which is okay. So I guess let's do this in like timeline chronological order. Aridon used to be a very selfish, power-hungry piece of garbage.
Basically.
He genocided the Arcanians. He turned his brothers against each other.
I mean, he genocided what was left of the Arcanians.
He blew them up and ensured that he would be the only survivor.
Yeah.
After that, he lost his memory. Oh no, I didn't do any of that. I'm actually just the perfect arbiter of Arkain. I'm the most powerful being on this continent, so surely, I have a plan. And it's to help these people. They don't understand. Some of them have to die, but it's for their own good. It's for everybody's own good. True neutral mindset. Everybody deserves a shot.
True.
From that perspective, after he'd lost his memory, Aridon is actually doing his best to do what he sees as the right thing in order to actually preserve some of these races from going extinct, from killing each other in Arkain. And I think that's really cool. But what's even more cool is then as this process continues and things start slipping from Aridon's grasp, then that old version of him that he doesn't even remember starts coming back out. He starts kind of melting down over the fact that he can't control everything and people aren't following this path that he deemed them entitled to. And because he's losing that control and that's becoming clear to him, he's becoming spiteful. And so this facade is starting to melt away of this true neutral arbiter of justice, or not justice, but like arbiter of neutrality and giving everybody a fair shot.
Agent of balance, you mean, Jay? Definitely, I wouldn't say justice is the right word, yeah, but he's saying it himself. I didn't expect him to put Aridon in A, honestly, because Jay has a massive orc bias. I mean, he has a tier just for the orc, for his orc queen, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see more of the orc bias later on.
For the longest time, I thought Aridon's whole idea of like keeping things balanced is just to ensure a steady stream of consistent death, because he's the god of, or the avatar of death after all, so he just wants to ensure that there's like a nice steady stream of it for him. But in reality, no, I think he just, when he kind of woke up again and he's like, oh, what happened? Everybody blew up. That's crazy. I'm the only one left. And he didn't remember that he orchestrated all of that like a megalomaniac, crazy person, piece of garbage. I think he genuinely thought like, you know what, I'm really powerful and I recognize that in myself, so I'm gonna try and like guide this world properly. But again, when the rubber met the road and things started going wrong, then the real Aridon started coming back out. It's been a really, really cool trend for this character. I've liked it a lot. I think a lot of people, there's some Schadenfreude where people see him being upset that things aren't working out. And yeah, like it's funny because you're like, oh, this person thought they were so in control and now they're being shown they're not. It's a fun feeling, but I think it's more interesting that when you compare it to the fact that he used to be one way, had amnesia, but now like certain things are happening that are like bringing him back, like bringing old Aridon, who was actually a much worse individual, back to the forefront. I think that's really cool.
Cool.
Okay, that's enough. Aridon's a very important character. We had to talk about him a lot.
Yeah.
Aveen, certainly more interesting in the more recent acts. One of the few remaining generals even left. I just get a bad feeling. My prediction for Aveen is she's going to live through the final battle.
Okay. And
maybe she'll even turn neutral and not attack the orcs anymore because she had some subtle doubts with the Red Fist. Especially when Ori was talking about turning poor dead Borean into a coat. I think she had a tepid pause after that, and you know how powerful those tepid pauses can be in Arcane. I have a suspicion that Aveen is gonna try and like make some sort of gesture, like, "Hey, I'm willing to stay in Saria," or "Hey, just let me go and join my brother, cousin, whatever, whomever in Carol." And I think that this is my guess. Just to be a slap in the face, what's going to happen is then Brian is going to appear to Amari and be like, "Hey, she was supposed to die, so since she didn't, you need to just get rid of her." And that's what I think is going to happen to Aveen. So that, I don't know. Depending on what happens with Aveen, she could go up or down. She could go up a lot, depending on what she ends up doing. But I'm also afraid that she's going to be disposed of after she does choose to do the right thing. We'll see, though. Hopefully we have a nice payoff.
Would be cruel.
Biram. I think this guy is the one who is actually behind the amulets that mind control people. I think Biram is just like a bad guy, but is exactly what Gardon needs. His methods are, Gardon has no qualms using.
True.
I just think, Biram just has no real ethical qualms with any sort of weird magic. Like, just because magic is called dark doesn't mean it's inherently bad, but I think the way that he wields it is why it's bad. Also, I think Biram is one of those characters. I think Biram is like Jafar from Aladdin.
Wait,
like,
what?
For some reason, they send this guy to do, like, diplomatic things, but he's clearly a bad guy. Like, get someone who's, like, friendlier to be your ambassador, counselor, whatever. So, like, if you're gonna go and send a guy to ask the dwarves for an alliance, don't send this guy who's clearly a weirdo, you know?
Well, I mean, the dwarves were a lost cause for Iron Fist. There was no way they could have convinced Zarin to join Guard on this instance. I feel like Jay's forgetting, though, that Biram was the one who basically brought the Order of the Lightning, for example, to Gardon's Fold by saving them and telling them that they could be rebuilt. So it's not like he never had any diplomatic successes. He also negotiated with one of the Black Dragons, so yes, he used the Dark Trolls in that, but come on. Yeah, it's not like he had no success at all. Jay is throwing a bit too much shade at Biram here, but I understand why he's putting him in D tier. It's not like Biram is the most important character or anything.
Anyway, Blen Greymore. More interesting than in the first human book, for sure. Still exists mostly just to die, and that's kind of a springboard for a lot of things that happen in the true story. I like that he's such a catalyst for Wrath, and by extension, Inara at this point. But also, again, he's just kind of a bowl of oatmeal. I think the one thing that is very interesting about Blen Greymore is the implication that he is actually a pretty good general. Like, he's actually a pretty good leader with good tactics, and his loss was a substantial hit to the Imperials. I think that is interesting. At least I think that's how it's kind of explained, especially because him not being at the front and in Pride of the Empire was like a big problem, and he could have helped with Gardon and Van Doors and all of that stuff, but instead he chose to attack the Wolf Regiment, which is a really stupid decision. So not only is he boring, but the characterization he does get, which is deadbeat dad and then attacks his own allies unprovoked, puts him in D tier for sure.
To be fair, I'm not sure if Zoya or Blen would call each other allies.
The Bone Lords, again, big character comeback with the Bone Lords. I think B for Bone Lords, just a lot more interesting. The three Bone Lords, when they're separated, they finish each other's sentences, very clearly just sort of nameless bad guys. They have a little more characterization, but they're inarguably just bad guys.
Not like they killed a bunch of children or anything and sent it against their own father after putting it together into a bone aberration or anything.
Right? But when they're merged, then things start to become really interesting. And I'd go so far as to say that Rogthil is the only being that we know of that has an actual clear memory of what happened with Aridon and the four brothers back in the day. Which I think is really interesting. Though I don't know, wouldn't Crom Crom could as well. I'm not so sure. I think the Bone Lords are a little older than Crom, but they're all Arcanians. But anyway, Rog feels very interesting. Seems like a character that's going to be very important later. And by later, I mean after the True Story campaign. I don't think we're going to see this character again. But who knows? Maybe in like the end cinematic or something, just kind of see what they're up to.
Basically, Crom and the Bone Lords are the same age. The difference being that the Bone Lords were the ones that have been ordered to kill the remaining Arcanians, basically. Crom was not really involved in that one.
Brian, I think nothing changed here. This is a sliced bread character.
Naturally.
I think everybody kind of knows, like, oh, of all the crazy egomaniacs and super powerful behind the scenes, I'm pulling all the strings characters, Brian is the most sympathetic to the normal people in Arcane, and I think that alone is a really good quality. I think Brian he's respectful to his apprentices. He doesn't treat them like his underlings. He seems like he has like a pretty mutual, like, peer relationship with them, which I think is really nice. He gives them autonomy to run their kingdoms. The way I look at Brian too is he helped assist create these new kingdoms, the Dominion and Joinor Reborn, in spite of Aridon, but not to spite Aridon, if that makes sense. Whereas like the Dark One, Tregok, I think everything he's doing is to spite Aridon specifically.
Very much true. Yeah, Largov is basically has a big motivation to just do anything he can to counter whatever Aridon is doing or trying to do. And Brian is the most human of the four, you could say, for obvious reasons, since, he is part human at this point.
Brian, I think, is mostly, like, he looks at these mortal races and he's like, you know what, I think, like, they should have a chance at being able to just run things the way they want and not be manipulated. Or at least if anyone's going to manipulate them, it's going to be me, and not these other MFers that I know were lunatics. So I think for that, he's a cool guy. And I think it's because he was resurrected, merged with the humans, so that gives him a little more of a connection to humans and orcs and what have you. The other thing, though, is keep in mind, he saved the orc race from extinction when their fleet fled from their sinking continent, and
True.
he did that before he was merged with a person.
True.
That was when he was still, like, spooky ghost shadows that are like pieces in a temple. So I guess there's that. Are we listening to yes, this is a Mario Kart 64 snow level, of course. Okay. Brakta, poor guy, is killed in the True Story. You hate to see it. I think the C tier is where a lot of the meh lieutenants go. It's not that I don't like Brakta, and also I don't love Brakta. I think he was gone too soon. He never... again, you could think of reasons to say, like, oh, this character is really cool in the time that we had with him. But, like, we got to use the C tier, and I think this is exactly where he belongs.
Fair.
I don't think Korra is as cool as Uncorrupted Eale anymore. I think Korra has less of a character arc. She is a character. She has character traits. That's a really good thing. But Korra doesn't really have anything that, like, tempts her, and then she either succumbs or resists. I think Korra is, like... kind of. She just wants more power, similar to her sister, but, like... I like her because she has a good characterization, but at the same time, like, she doesn't feel super core to the story or anything that's happening, and she hasn't done anything that made me think, like, hell yeah! But also, I think she's a well-crafted character who belongs in at least B tier.
Interesting. Very interesting. I'm pretty sure that Jay was very much in favor of the whole Korra absorbing Scarlet thing, and Korra being the first Imperial, first overall, basically, actually, to kneel to Garladon and telling him that she swore fealty to him and his nation without any conditions when he dealt with the rebellion of Redka. But I can see why Eale is higher on top than Korra.
I know what we can do with this tier, looking at our next character. Okay, Derek is going to go down here.
Okay.
This is our BTFO tier. Because anybody in this tier needs to BTFO our favorite characters. Derek's coming for our girl Amari. Nah, dog. Okay.
Oh my god, the Amari fanaticism of this man. But yeah, Derek is just following orders, even if the ones who gave him said orders are, well, dead.
But to be real, like, Derek is fine. He's just kind of doing what he was paid to do originally. It's funny, though, the people that originally paid him are dead, so realistically, he could just keep the money and go about his business. There's no reason he needs to keep doing this. It just seems like he never really questions it. Very unfortunate. But anyway, that puts him in the BTFO character.
I mean, yeah, he could just take the gold and leave, but he was paid to do something, and he's one of those mercenaries who actually never leaves a job unfinished. But I can see the reasoning here. I don't really agree with it. I can understand that he wants Derek away from his Orc Queen, though.
Category. Dogrin is... Dude doesn't have many lines.
Yeah.
Doesn't talk very much.
Yeah.
Unfortunately dies in utter destruction. You can use him in one mission, but otherwise, he exists. He's a clan champion, but otherwise he's fine.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Now that he's talking about utter destruction, I can't wait to see the Destroyer. Is the Destroyer going to challenge his Orc Queen, or is he going to slice bread? I have to know these things.
So he goes in D tier because he's very bland and boring, whereas Dorton is going to go in D tier because I think Dorton, bland and boring, but also very stupid. So I guess similar to Blen. Bland and boring, but also just makes really bad decisions. Why would you start your uprising against the Golden Guard before the demon invasion has been even remotely stopped? Like, demons are full steam ahead. You haven't really even made any effort to actually stop them. You don't really even have a plan anymore, except the cannon that the Golden Guard has. And you're like, you know what? Let's just betray them all. That sounds great. Yeah, bad idea. Anyway.
I mean, Dorton did this mostly just because he picked sides in the Van Durs versus Gardon conflict, basically. He had to make a choice, and he made the choice. He went very far when he made this choice. But he kind of just felt that he had to choose a side, and he chose Gardon over Van Durs. You can argue about whether or not that was a good idea or not.
Dorton is D. Ibira? My thoughts on this character have changed kind of dramatically, actually. I think how we're supposed to think about Ibira is taken for granted. I think she has I love when you get to use her and she has that charm ability. You can basically charm an unlimited number of units within a certain radius. As long as they're close enough to her, you could charm all of them. That's sick. I think Ibira is too much of like a Galaxy Brain 4D chess weirdo at this point. I don't like her most recent talk with Ornassian. Like, she's insulting him and basically reinforcing how stupid she thinks he is, but then at the same time pities him as like, oh, I'm so sorry for what happened to you. Even though she caused it, like, I don't know. We still don't necessarily even know what her end goal is, because we don't really know what's going on with the demon politics in their homelands. I get the impression that she couldn't stop the invasion, so the best she could do was sort of sabotage it and make it end as quickly as possible. I think she probably saw Ornassian and Cursadar as two of the most controversial figures that led to the most strife within the demons as like a whole body, like a political body, so she figured this was an opportunity to get rid of them. That's my guess. But I'm not sure. She seems to know who Largoth is. Like, Cursadar knows who Largoth is, and she asks him, like, oh, can you clarify who you were talking about? And he wouldn't tell her, thinking she didn't know, but it's pretty obvious she knows all the goings-ons with Aridon and Tragok and all that crap. But we just really don't have enough time with her and get enough of her perspective to really know. So Ibira just sort of comes off as, like, one of those people who's like, I'm just too cool for all of you, so bye. And that's all we kind of know. At the very least, we can keep her in B tier, but I don't think she goes higher than that anymore.
Okay, she's been going down a bit then. Interesting. I'm definitely not going to reveal such crucial plot in a freaking reaction video for obvious reasons. What I will say though, Ibira used to be in favor of this invasion basically. Up to the point when she no longer agreed with the course of action that was taken, you could say. She did some things even though she didn't agree with them, but she still went along with them. And then, when it was completely going into a direction she did not support at all, that was when she decided to, let's just say, switch her goals around a bit, in a nutshell.
At least not until we get another scene with her. I think we're going to have an upcoming scene with her before Gardon enters Gates of Hell, but I don't know. It just doesn't... Like, I think she's one of the few demon characters. She's one of the few characters that actually wants what's best for her entire race. But how she's going about that and what, we just don't really understand. Edoris? This is just an F character. There's not enough going on. I've read his character sheet, which is vastly more interesting than anything he's ever done in the missions. Edoris is playable in 2 missions, and the first one he's introduced in is one where it's just kind of like, do we really need this guy here? Or could have this been Rahandir or Crom or someone? Give someone else more of an opportunity to get characterized. I think Edoris just sort of eats up a slot here. I know in the past I've sort of memed about it. I mean, it was a legitimate complaint, but it was half of, I presented it hyperbolically about how, like, there's way too many characters. When I look at this, I recognize most of these characters, and I like almost all of them. But there are still a few. I will, I went a little too far with my opinion in the past, but I still kind of hold this idea that, like, some of these folks are too... They're superfluous. And I think Edoris is one of those.
I won't agree with this statement, but I can see how, as a player, it feels a bit overwhelming when it's in a video game perspective. If it's a story basically, but it's presented in a video game and you play as these characters, and there are so many of them after a while. Some get more screen time than others, and others are then, of course, not considered important or are just laid to the side, basically. I can understand why he feels superfluous, you could say.
Flamidus, that's where you belong. Really not much to say about you. I think you're leading your people to the right path, but otherwise, not that much screen time, not that much input in any cinematics either. Never really key to any goings-ons, but still an important character nonetheless. Flesh Terror. Look, it's not just for Sassar anymore. That's where Flesh Terror goes. Just absolute trash tier character that doesn't need to exist. At least not as a playable one. I think it's fine when you can kill him in a couple different missions. I think 3 different missions you can kill Flesh Terror. But, again, it's the same mission with Edoris, actually. In Slaves of the Demons, you use Edoris and Flesh Terror. That could have been 2 other undead characters and given you a chance to get to know them. That could have been a good introduction for Maya. Could have just brought Crom in again. Rahandir made Saphira playable instead of an allied unit. I just think that there were options there for more interesting undead characters. Or if it's got to be these 2, then like give these 2 more screen time later where you can. They need some kind of personality. Otherwise, they're just weirdos. But I think Flesh Terror is worse than Edoris even still.
Well, I mean, Flesh Terror has no personality because he's not a person, honestly.
Galareth. Galareth is B just because he's goofy. He's a goofy man. He's got funny voice lines. He's insane. Here's the thing. I clearly like characters that are on the path to doing things that I see as like, oh, they're going to do the right thing. None of the undead characters are shaping up to do that. None of them. At least it might be something that would happen down the line in like some post, true story era, when the undead start fracturing. But at this point, like, Gallerith runs a nexus where they just torture people, and they're sort of gleeful about it, and they just have no regard for life. And so, like, why would I think that character is ever going to do the right thing? But I can at least say that this character is kind of silly, so he can go higher.
I mean, the right thing is a point of view, Jayborino.
Genethys we memed into a higher tier last time.
And I have no idea why.
Just because he basically tricked everyone into believing what happened in the end of the First Void War, but realistically, this character goes down here.
Yeah.
Gorthok. This is a pretty big comeback for this character. I think Gorthok goes into A. I think maybe he was a B or C tier last time. But Gorthok way more interesting now. Look. He's treading water down here. I'm gonna be honest with you. He's close to that BTFO tier. I'm gonna be real with you. But no, this is an A character with the whole stuff with the Mokhtar and like he's got. We haven't seen it yet, and I hope maybe we do. The idea that you could play like a macro mission with his faction, where like it's like him and Murlocs and Mokhtar. Would be really wacky, and like random like spiders and wolves and lizards and stuff could be really, really interesting. Even better if he links up with Eale, and then you can make like Garazar troops and Infernals. What a wacky potpourri faction. That could be so cool. And like Zoya's a usable hero. I don't know. I like to imagine. I know there's 2 major missions left for the humans and the orcs, but I like to imagine there's one wild card in there. It's going to be the last, I don't know, one of the last missions. There'll be a wild card mission where you have this just bizarre force that you've never seen before that you can use. I don't know. Or at least they exist on the map. Could be really, really neat.
I'm calling it now because he said he was going to put Gorog almost into BTFO tier. I feel like every character who's going in there is one of those who's going against Amari. I'm so sorry. I wouldn't be surprised if freaking Gran over there would end up in BTFO tier. Then again, they had a talk recently, and Jake did agree with Gran's point. So maybe Gran's getting out of BTFO, but I feel like maybe he's going to stay there.
Gran Gorewolf. Gorehowl. I call him Gorewolf a lot. Gran Gorehowl.
Thank you.
Yo, dude. Get in that BTFO category. I know that he had his little conversation with Amari. He had his little conversation. But he didn't talk about how he knew about Inara. He didn't talk about Gorthok either. I think that
True.
I think that the Gnolls are going to be bought into the Dominion. But I think that Mr. Gorehowl is, he's going to be sneaky and suspicious. He's going to treat everybody with suspicion even still. You know, again, they had their little conversation, so it's not as, there's not as much tension. But, I don't know. It'd be interesting if we could get Inara, Amari, Gran, and Gorthok in a room together. Can you imagine?
Oh boy.
That'd be pretty sick.
That would be the most volatile room in the entire freaking Arkain continent. That would be interesting.
I don't know how that would go, because how Amari swings in that situation, I have no idea. Because, like, we don't know. It's possible Amari is basically playing Inara at this point and saying, like, look, do all this stuff for me, improve your loyalty. Here's your reward. You can run a bunch of these other orc clans. And it's ultimately just to get Inara to do all the dirty work. And then Amari can just turn around and be like, hey, look at all this bad shit Inara did. Get out of here. You know, you're exiled or now you're executed. Get out. It makes Amari look good for getting rid of bad elements, but also she still got all of the benefit of having Inara do those things. That's one possibility. That's like my copium outcome. I don't think that will actually happen, but I think that would be really neat. Like, that would be a fun way to end the orc story. Because right now, the orc story, I like it, but it's also a little depressing. It's just not, like, the formation of the Dominion in the second orc book was, like, a really fun, satisfying moment, and I feel like that's just completely gone in the true story for me. So, I don't know. I hope that there's some sort of feel-good moment at the end of the orc story somehow. I don't know how that could happen at this point, but I hope we get something like that.
I don't know, you just have to listen to one of Ishok's speeches, honestly, and then you get your feel-good moment. I have no idea what Jay's talking about.
Okay. Grella. True believer Grella, but frankly, you go in the C tier. Actually, I mean, I think this is a B tier character in terms of story impact, but also I think Grella's kind of silly, so she goes down a tier. I don't know. I don't think the amulet thing is that big of a deal. She put it on willingly. She knew what it would do, and she still put it on. It's not like Amari forced her to take it like Gardon does when he gives people amulets. Or I should say Gardon tricks people. He tricked Solana, presumably tricked Merlon with their amulets. Grella was not tricked. I think Grella understood and still took it. Grella's a big girl, okay? She's an adult. She chose to do it. But I think we're still seeing the effects of the... Like, I don't think Amari necessarily controls her. I just think that it's just part of the magic of the amulet. Grella's going to be, like, head over heels. And is now will do anything for Amari. Grofsag, absolutely A-tier character. Love him. This is also one of those characters that sort of just always is on the right side of history. I do like this idea of, like, he's, like, awakening this earth magic power within himself. I think that's pretty neat. Harantel Kazor, man. He has great... he has great interactions with Ornasian, and I think, like, Harantel kind of, like, teaches Ornasian how to be undead, which I think I really like that characterization. It kind of, like, puts Haran in, like, this big brother kind of role. And also, it's very sad because, you know, he thought he was fighting hard and keeping the Nerubians free, but it was all just a, 4D chess play by Aridon, which is really unfortunate. So I feel bad for him. But also, now that he's undead, similar to Galarith, he's just kind of an asshole in the way that he runs his Nexus, in the sense that he keeps Nerubians enslaved so that he can then kill them and raise them. I think that sucks, but you also can't help but feel bad for him from, the perspective of what it was like when he was alive. I'm curious if maybe after Aridon is disconnected from him, if things would change substantially. Because, like, if he's not obligated to do those things, he might not.
The thing is, I mean, Haran is not obligated to enslave races, breed them, kill them, and all that. That's just the thing that the Ijara Nexus does, basically. It's their identity, so to speak. We keep them alive, we breed them, they are our stock.
And I think that could be really interesting. But there's a short story about him, but I don't know when it takes place in the timeline on whether he chooses to continue to do that or not. But anyway, really it's just kind of like that big bro mode that he has with Ornasian.
Yeah.
Harmos. That's a B tier character. I think I used to have him higher. I like Harmos though.
Sure.
I like that he's kind of just indignant. Like, no matter the consequences, he's kind of like true to power, and I like that. Because he's got a lot of power and he knows it, so, like, he's not afraid of the authority of these other powers. So, like, Van Doors puts him in jail and stuff, but I don't think he really even cares that much, if that makes sense. I think Harmos he's just a chill guy who...
I'm not sure if chill is the right word to describe Harmos, all fire puns aside. I think I get what Jay's saying here, yeah.
Who's very powerful, and he knows it. I think that's pretty cool. Horgar, I mean... Similar reason to Edoras, like, he exists, but there's really not much. There's really not much to him. I'd have to go back and read the lore entries in the missions, but I just don't think there's much with him. Khazardius. I think this is like a C-tier character. I think there's a lot of potential with Khazardius in the sense that, he's questioning Aridon about, like, lying to him about Juinor and stuff. And now that the fact that Juinor Reborn is coming up, it makes you wonder if Khazardius could contact them in some way. I don't think Gardon will want to after what's going to happen after Gates of Hell, but it would be interesting if there was an undead faction proper in Juinor Reborn, because Khazardius would fit in perfectly there. But otherwise, I'm not really sure what the long-term idea is with this character. But we're close to the end of the campaign, so I really don't think there is one.
I mean, what will happen at the Gates of Hell?
Kira. Queen Kira. She was the mother of Renova. Sad. I should make like a sad boy tier. We could put Kira in there. We could put Harental in there. We could put Dorbrick in there. Crom, everybody who gets a little sad. All the sad boys can go in the sad boy tier. Kira, if there was a sad boy tier, Kira would go in it. Otherwise, she's a D tier. Just not enough time with this character. I think she's more interesting if you read her short story. But in general, I would still, this is about where she goes. I like how she's one of those undead characters that has regrets, but again, doesn't have that much control over what she can realistically do.
Yeah.
Kanos, Fire Guy, Phoenix Guy. Certainly more interesting because he's one of the few people that's still alive, but you go in the BTFO category.
Oh, come on.
Because you're coming for our girl.
I told you! He's going to put He's going to put more of those people who go after Amari there. All of them, isn't he? Red Fist is going in there, probably. Oregon is going in there, I guess. I'm shocked that Aveen didn't go there. I guess she was lucky. Poor Kenos. Jesus. Oh, man.
Cursadar. I don't know. I think I made excuses for why Cursadar should go higher last time, but this is a C character. He's kind of interesting. I like him more in the first 4 acts because you can see some conversations he has before he becomes like the outright invasion leader, at which point he sort of just takes a back seat in the story and is just like, he's running the demons and they're coming for you. But prior to that, like, he was actually doing stuff.
He wasn't very present afterwards. Yeah, that's very much true.
And I liked that. So again, that's a C character. Crom I like a lot. He's grown on me a lot. He's gonna go A tier. Crom and Rahundir are 2 characters, actually. We can talk about this more when we get to Rahundir.
Oh.
I really did not like them in the first Undead book. And I still didn't really like them in some of the first act missions of the True Story.
Okay.
There's something about that era when those missions were made where a lot of the characters were just like obnoxious. Like obnoxious edgelords. Everything was like, I don't have time for this. This is a waste of my time. I'm way too cool for this. I'm way too powerful to do this.
Jay, it was mostly you about Largov. Come on. You can't put some poor Crom and Rahundir. Come on. What did they do to you?
What, you tell me I have to assassinate this guy? What a waste of time. Who are they? They're nothing. I'm super powerful. I don't really love that kind of character. Crom and Rahundir firmly in that category for a while, and then they shift distinctly. I don't really know what else to say about that, but I do really like Crom. I think he could possibly verge into sad boy territory in the sense that he sort of laments at how old he is and just doesn't really get any sort of emotion or joy from doing anything anymore, just because he's been doing this for so long. Another one that's very interesting if we see what he's going to do after Aridon pieces out, which, again, I don't know for sure that's what's going to happen, but you can watch my theories and predictions video where I talk about that. But I think Crom is one of those characters I'm very interesting to hear, what he might be up to after that.
The thing is that Crom has killed basically anything up to this point due to his long life, which is why he's getting fatigued, you could say, as Jay pointed out. And that's more of a thing, like, it's not that he thinks they are so beneath him. It's more of a, I want a challenge. And this is not the kind of challenge. I don't feel anything when I do this, you could say. That's also why he's I don't want to say desperately, but he is looking for prey that is actually worth his time. He feels that he doesn't get any accomplishment unless he kills something that's actually powerful. If that makes any sense. He's like a hunter that's doesn't have any prey anymore that's actually giving any satisfaction. But I digress.
Largoth, you know, big baddie. The fact that we know that doesn't necessarily change the fact that this character basically is just kind of a B or even C tier character. Again, I feel like just because of the fact that it's the Dark One in Disguise does not mean he gets to be higher in the list. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
We don't have much time with him. It's possible when the campaign ends, we'll get another scene with him. I really liked his scene at the end of the second Undead book, though, just because of the fact that it introduced that interesting, like, meta-narrative. So, yeah, he can go into B tier. But otherwise, another one of those characters where I'm like, I'm so cool, I'm really cool, I'm really cool, everybody else is stupid. The fact that, you know, Varangar is no longer a character, and, like, in the original Fresh Breeze map, Largoth killed Varangar and destroyed the Undead base, and he's like, mwahaha. And you're like, oh, okay, kind of an actual evil betrayal moment. In True Story Fresh Breeze, Largoth just says, okay, it's time for me to go now, and just leaves and does nothing. So, like, the fact that he doesn't actually have any sort of betrayal moment sort of takes the wind out of the sails there. Like, why did he decide that that was the time for him to just disappear and disalign himself from Aridon and the Undead? Again, in the original, he kills one of the player-controlled heroes, so there's some impact to it, but now he just leaves.
I mean, it was because of Eale, basically, that he left. And there was no way he could have pulled that off without being suspected. I mean, he already was being watched, you could say. It was only a matter of time until he would have had to leave anyway. And he decided when Eale was on her way to get the Demon Eye and basically go inside Zara's prison, that he decided, alright, the time has come.
I don't know, it's a little... It just feels a little strange. But I also didn't want Gallereth to die there, because he had so much more to give us. Lorene? Man, I liked when I could make Solana my queen.
I know.
Lorene is fine, though. She's interesting. But also a character that I feel like could have always been Solana. I don't know. It's like Lorene, the whole idea that she was an exile and it sort of drives the Solana subplot that happens in Long Live the Queen is interesting in its own right. So it's, you know, it's worth keeping those characters as two different ones. But it's like, hey, we have an elf that's sort of under our control. She seems to really like you. But instead, here's just a new elf that also really likes you and is just going to basically replace the other one, and then we're just going to dispose of the other one. Again, the whole, like, loyalty plotline and stuff, though, was an interesting one, so I'm glad that stayed. Larig goes in D tier, not because he's disinteresting, but because he just perpetually makes the worst decisions possible. Right, so the way I grade these, again, it's like a mixture of, like, I ask myself, is this character interesting? Is this character impactful to the plot? And do I like the decisions that this character makes? Gallereth is one of those where it's like, this character is interesting, but I don't like the decisions they make. Whereas Larig is like the, you know, they're like, he's interesting, but for the wrong reasons. I really dislike the decisions he makes, but so much so that he goes into D tier.
Yeah, Larig basically just... guy shouldn't have gotten as promoted as much, honestly. He would have made a great captain, or something like that.
Whereas Gallereth, again, he's interesting enough that he goes up to B tier. I don't know if that explains how that works, but there's a lot of these factors. Sara can go next to her boy Largoth. These two characters, again, had big plans that actually, for the most part, feel like they're being disrupted pretty effectively at this point, you know? Just straight up. Lokar. Man. This was a character that I used to really like, but it's different now because he was killed. He's also one of the hardest... I hold this opinion. He's one of the hardest AI opponents you're going to have in any of the maps. If you play as the Death Breeze in Rise of the Clans, that purple base has like 14 production structures in it. It's incredibly difficult to break. And
Okay, hang on a second. I will go and have to check. Okay, I went and checked the map actually. he must have counted the buildings. They start with 6 barracks and 8 spirit lodges, so he got that right.
And it's just funny because in the cinematic, Lokar's like, hey, I hate that we have to fight, but don't worry, we'll go easy on you. And it's seriously one of the hardest. I mean, I've played the camp. You've seen it's on video. You've seen me play all the missions that are released, so you know that I've gone through them all. So I can say with confidence, after I tried the Death Breeze portion of that map, that base is easily one of the hardest to break in like the whole flippin' campaign. So, F you, Lokar, for saying you're gonna go easy on me. Anyway, I liked him a lot more when he was the bro because he like brought the survivors of the vengeful orc clans back into the fold with Amari, but that role is been usurped by Inara, which I like because we'll get to Inara. Yeah, we'll get there eventually. But the point is, he was cut short. I think, you can see him becoming likable, and then Inara's like, nope, dead. So I think Lokar just stays in C, unfortunately. If he would have lived to make it past Risen Resistance, he would have gone higher. There you go. Magazar? Why haven't we seen him again? Why? Why isn't he part of the Khazar Nexus? Why? What happened to him? It's funny how both Flesh Terror and Margazar just sort of chill next to Aridon in the Bloodbath mission. It's funny how they, too, are the ones that ended up in Sass tier. Interesting stuff. Okay, Merlon. Merlon's a solid B. But Merlon is a sad one. I'm not saying he belongs in the sad boy category, but It's depressing when you think that he's had the mind control amulet on. It's an influence amulet. It doesn't full on mind control you, and you can sort of resist, but it's like it creates a bizarre dissonance in your mind where it makes it very difficult to resist. I forget where I read it. It might have been on the character sheet, but basically there's like some sort of nebulous history where he and Gardon were rivals, but then suddenly Merlon and him are friends because he got an amulet. And now what's extremely strange and sad is Gardon thinks that they are actually like good friends. And that's because Merlon treats him as such, but it's because he's been wearing the amulet for who knows how long. So it's a really weird... It's very weird, you know what I mean? Gardon basically turned Merlon into his AI girlfriend.
Okay. Didn't see that one coming. Merlon and AI girlfriend. Oh my god. Come on. AI girlfriend? Really? The idea is just hilarious to me.
I like Merlon, though, and when you don't think of it from the perspective of, he's just a puppet of Gardon, and from some perspective, it's hard to disassociate that, but just as his own character, I think he's charming, he's silly, and I like him, so he can go in the B tier. Maya. This character is like Galareth, but better. Again, she's insane. Don't love, she's one of those characters, just does, bad things. But that doesn't mean she's a bad character. But I do consider that when I make my rankings to a certain extent, because that's how much do I like them, their decisions. Maya comes in low on that front, but she's incredibly interesting. I think she's very funny. I think she's just a very likable character.
Calling it now, I'm giving Jay 1 or 2 years, maybe. Maybe even just a month, until he makes Imea his queen. He's starting to fall for her, I'm telling you. She is the most beautiful creature of Arkain after all, so I cannot really blame him for falling for her like that.
And so, yeah, she comes in and she's an A-tier undead, which is rare. I think a lot of the undead have been able to move up so far in this ranking.
They have, yeah, I think.
Morden.
I think a lot of undead have not had kept a good standing with Jay the last time he did his tier list. Morden, yeah.
He goes in the sad boy tier, but also a D. You get one mission with him. I understand who he is. I like that there's a setup for him in Hunt for Riches early on in the campaigns. Drives a lot of Zaren's behaviors and decisions as well.
Yeah.
But just don't really have the time with him, so kind of uninteresting. That's where he goes. Okri, probably one of those B or C tier characters. I think Okri gets a step above the C tiers. I quite like Okri. She talks the talk, but can also walk the walk. I think she's pretty cool. One Eye. Probably going right there. That's fine. Oregon, you know where you go. Getting that beat.
Come on! In the case of Oregon, I can understand why he hates the guy. But is that really just the don't face Amari tier at this point?
TFO category. Heck yeah. Pretty big fan of Ornasian these days. I like how... Well, so he has the interactions with Harantel, but then also Maya. Like, they both sort of function as these characters that interface with Ornasian to kind of tell him, like, hey, you're undead now, and you think that means this thing, but it actually means this other thing. And I think Maya's given him, like, the second tier of that after Harantel set him up when they were doing the Dark Elf stuff. But I like Ornasian. I like the idea of a character who, like, can be aware of the political intrigues going on, but chooses not to care on the assumption that he can just kill them all. I don't think he's had a good payoff, though. I mean, being able to kill Hesrathian was a good end for that character, but I would be remiss if we were not able to get at least another scene with him with some sort of payoff for his character. I don't know how, but I think he needs one thing. I don't know what it would be, but he needs one thing to wrap up his story somehow.
Would be a shame, yes, if he wasn't playable anymore, but who knows what the future holds, right?
Petchin? I think that's where you go. You know, likable character, similar to Flamidus. Is fine.
Yeah.
Pentis.
Okay, I'm pretty sure Pentis is not going to go any high places. Is she going to... She might actually break into the BTFO tier, honestly, because Jay really doesn't like her. I think he said on several occasions that he wished Ornasian had just killed her. I'm pretty sure. She also talked about, especially when she talked about his boy Haran Tel'Gazor, right?
Pentis. I would go so far as to put Pentis in the BTFO category because she's bullying up on my boy Ornasian, but I gotta think about this.
Really?
Because she is interesting, but I really don't like her, so she's gonna go in the D tier. Not quite BTFO tier though.
I'm shocked she didn't go into F tier. Like, I guess F tier is for characters that didn't have any screen time, or then again, that's for Sass tier, right? Putting her next to Morden as Jay is not something I would have expected, honestly.
I think Praxius has grown on me quite a lot, actually. I actually really like Praxius now. I think in the second human book, he was just a guy that just shows up to be sort of a goon under Van Doors. But I really like this history that's been given where he's like childhood friends with Gardon and knows a lot of Gardon's past, and they have like these matching friendship amulets and stuff. And like Gardon having to kill Praxius very well might have impacted Gardon much more than having to kill any of the Van Doors kids or Reynald.
He didn't like that, yeah.
So for that reason, I like Praxius a lot more. He also got some more scenes, like when they showed up in Carol and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Queerness, F tier. No explanation needed. No explanation needed.
I want an explanation why Pentis isn't in F tier. I need that explanation, Jay. As of Rexius,
Rahandir, man, I want to put him in A. I'm considering B. We'll put him in A for now. And it's for the same thing I talked about with Crom. This character feels like they did a 180 flip, where they were just he is just an obnoxious asshole for the first couple acts, and now more recently he seems a lot more chill and shrewd, and starting to question Aridon a little bit. But
I mean, he is starting to question Aridon very quote-unquote recently. Rahandir also has this thing that he's quite embittered about everything that has been happening to him personally.
Like, it's also funny how he was a random boss fight in Dark Secrets. Was it Dark Secrets? I think it was Dark Secrets, where he's like randomly level 10 and has 1 billion health, but then when you get to use him, he's like a fraction of that power. I just, maybe he shouldn't have been the boss in that one mission, because that doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of wish that, like, old Rahandir would have been more like, hey, I'm doing this for your own good, goodbye. Or like, you know, like, you wouldn't understand, but I'm doing this for your own good. Instead, he's like, I'm doing this for your own good because you guys are all effing stupid, and you couldn't possibly understand, and I'm way too cool. And
minus the last part, that's basically what he thought, yeah. He didn't have a high opinion of that when he encountered them, because he just believed them to be another bunch of power-hungry people.
Again, it's just sort of that attitude that specifically Crom and Rahandir had. I wasn't a big fan of, and that was the reason why I never really cared for the Undead very much, and they started coming around on me in the second Undead book and a lot more in the True Story. But some of those dialogue lines have stuck around into the True Story, and it's weird, because again, Rahandir starts the early acts strange, and then I think by the time about Bloodbath, he starts interacting with Saphira more. He does something else, I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, and like the stuff with Renova's kids. Like, it seems like he actually cares about certain stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish maybe he was a little more consistent in that way. I'm not so sure. But in any case, I think Rahandir gets an A for his character and where it's clearly going, and the more recent interactions with him. It's just kind of the intro of Crom and Rahandir I was not a huge fan of. Okay, enough of that. On to the next thing. Ramirius. That's an F tier. We just didn't have enough time with him, and he didn't really have much interesting going on. Like him and like Furgon is an example of a character. Well, I guess we'll get to him. Like, they both died on the same mission, but like Furgon had more lines and just was more interesting and seemed to have like actual character traits. And Ramirius, I guess we just didn't really have the time with him.
That's a fair point. Under that logic, wouldn't it be better in Sass tier? Actually, no. The reason why I keep bringing this up, Jay, is because I still question how you, out of all people, who absolutely despises, absolutely loathes Pentis, have put her higher than Ramirius. That I don't get that.
To get there. Rangul, very important character. Not necessarily the most likable of characters.
Also
he
true.
does unite the clans, but for questionable reasons. Again, just going on like a massive raid of the kingdoms at the time of a demon invasion just seems like the worst decision. Seems like the worst decision possible. But at the same time, he did unite the clans, and if he wouldn't have taken them off of the Orc Islands for whatever reason, they would have all gotten killed by Red Fist anyway. So.
True, but if he also hadn't raided the Red Fist mansion, that wouldn't have happened. But, yeah, it's not like all Rangul did was bad. You can. At least for the orcs, I mean. For Red Fist, this was very bad.
I think Rangul, just for his impact in the story, goes here, and like he's very interesting, but I wouldn't say I think he's a very likable character.
Fair, fair.
I think he's an effective leader mostly because he has the Scepter of Healing, but that's about it.
I think when Rangel died, most people were like, oh no, the Scepter of Healing is lost, rather than, oh no, Rangel is dead.
But I don't think Rangel ever really has a moment where I'm like, yeah, what a cool guy. He did it now. Man, Wrath. I think Wrath is solid C. Not because he's meh, but because he has such strong things that pull me to put him higher and lower. So he just kind of lands right in C tier because he is just the biggest useful idiot. But at the same time, you can completely understand why he's as upset as he is. So that's hard to say. Red Fist goes in the BTFO category. Easiest BTFO of my life. Renova, F tier.
Okay, Renova doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Red Fist, come on. This is getting ridiculous at this point. I thought you didn't have a meme tier this time, Jay. What are you doing? At this point, it's just spite, Jay. let the hate flow through you. To be fair, I understand why he didn't like Red Fist, or I put him there. Red Fist didn't have much screen time in the true story at all. He's more one of those behind-the-scenes characters, right? Because he, by existing and by fathering the children that he fathered, and by influencing them the way he did, put them on the... I mean, he didn't put them on the path they're taking right now, but he is basically one of the reasons, one of the huge influencing factors behind a lot of things regarding his family. But he's also against Amari, so he's BTFO tier.
No question about that. Retka, F tier. Dude, he just starts a rebellion, and who asked, you know?
Retka, yeah. No, we don't need to discuss that one. One of the most influencing factors over Nova was how absolutely abysmal her relationship with her mother Kira was. And her desire to just basically undo everything Kira did, and... Yeah. Didn't end very well.
I do like Solana. I am a Solana fan.
I know.
But where do I want to put her? Because her story was changed substantially as well.
Basically.
But she was, I mean, OG Solana pre-Amulet, you didn't have that much time with her, but, like, she seemed like a pretty solid lady. I think we gotta put her in C for now. But then, like, she starts doing things that, you know, it's not really under her control as much because she's given an amulet. So it's like, well, you know? I do quite like Mr. Salamar, though. I think we gave Salamar an A last time. I think just because he's just so chill. Like, he sees what's going on with Eale, and he's so good with her, but she still just can't handle it. No! He addresses her insecurities head on. He tries to talk to her about it. He tries to reassure her.
Yeah.
He's like, makes it clear he's not trying to trick her. He says that he trusts her, and she just doesn't believe it. Well, Lisara tricks her into not believing him.
Yeah.
But my point is, he was a really good faith guy, and I really liked that, and he was taken from us too soon. So he'll get a B tier, maybe not quite A, because he doesn't have that impact. But he tried. I like him.
He tried.
I'm a pretty big fan of Saphira. Congrats, you get A tier. Another Undead in the A tier. You never thought you'd live to see the day.
I think Saphira, I'm not sure if she was an A tier, but she was higher than most other Undead in his last tier list, I think.
Another character I wish we got some more screen time with. I quite like Saphira. She's kind of another one similar to Ornasian, where you kind of get to learn what the process of becoming undead and integrating with their weird society is like from kind of that semi-newcomer. Like, for her, she has one or two conversations with Rawhundir about, like, oh, this is strange. And I think she might have a conversation with Rawhundir that's the first tip-off to show, like, Aridon's starting to lose his edge a little bit. Because she's like, I think she, like, questioned one of the strategies, and Aridon's like, oh, I'm glad you said that. All my children are welcome to raise their concerns and questions. But then he, like, puts Rawhundir on the back burner as sort of like a implicit punishment for Rawhundir's underling acting out. Again, to kind of show that, like, Aridon is indeed very, he's very spite-driven.
He didn't like
but
that,
he has
yeah.
this air of neutrality. Sassar.
He wasn't unsaid.
Ooh!
A C. Goddamn C. Okay. I want to hear his reasoning first.
What do you know about that? Huh? What do you say about that? You got nothing to say.
I got a lot of things to say, I'm just waiting.
Okay, we'll at least put Sassar in D tier. But Sassar does not belong in Sass tier. Sass tier is a meme. It always has been. Look, I can explain the entire context of Sassar for all of you. When the first Orc book came out,
History lesson time.
many, many years ago, a lot of viewers today have no idea the context to any of this. Everybody hated Sassar. It became like a community thing to not like Sassar because you had to use him in Siege of Crom, and he was a worthless MF hero. He had Lightning Shield as one of his abilities. So everybody hated him because on one of the hardest missions in the whole flippin' thing, you had to use this stupid bad hero. And I think at that time, he was the only hero you had. You might have had Zermac, actually.
There was also Cermak, yeah.
But still, Sassar as a usable hero was bad. And I think from that sort of community momentum, Sassar was morphed into being an unlikable character in the narrative. And from that point, we started seeing, like, the Sassar is a coward narrative in Second Orc Book. Then the community started, enough time passed, and they forgot, oh, he had Lightning Shield. We forgot about that. Now it's, why is Sassar a coward? That doesn't make any sense. But then what happened? True Story comes around. The Sassar being a coward is much more baked in from the beginning. Starting from Hunt for Riches. I really like how Sassar basically effing over Amari in Mission 2 really sets the scene right away to say Sassar's kind of an asshole. He didn't need to do that. He just totally ruined his sister's life. But then from that point on, you still use him in Siege of Calm. He has better abilities, so it's hard to say, like, he's a coward from the perspective of he participates in one of the hardest sieges of the whole campaign. But my headcanon is you see him start to become a coward more so in Pride of the Empire onwards. And I like the idea to think, like, he had to start participating in these really serious battles and started getting some form of essentially PTSD. And he's horrified of participating in more battles. Like, he stayed in the base in Pride of the Empire, and then the demons showed up and started killing everyone all around him and stuff. And I think it happened after Green Wave. So my headcanon is one of the objectives was to kill him, actually, like, remove him from the battle. The dwarves, like, storming his base and, like, wounding him, killing him, whatever, in Green Wave, like, basically started him down this trail of, like, oh my god, I can't do this anymore. And then you see him in Bloody Sharpshooter, who he's fighting there. Really, with Sassar, the issue with him is the entitlement and strict adherence to tradition of, like, number one, Amari, you're not allowed to fight. I'm gonna snitch you out to the rest of the clan, and you're exiled. So again, he ruined his sister's life needlessly. And then number two, he thinks he's entitled to War Chief. And I think really, at the end of the day, Sassar could have been a very likable character if he acquiesced. And if he kind of stepped up and said, you know what, I think this should be mine. And then he starts seeing some pushback, and then he said, and then there's like kind of a reflection on like, you know what? After all these battles, I'm really like, they really wore me down. They really make me, you know, I can't handle this, and so I'm okay not. I think that, you know, that could have been an interesting path to take Sassar. That all being said, I think what happened to him is great, because it really pushed forward the Inara, Gran, Amari plotline. So I'm fine with his fate the way that it turned out as well. But again, to know the history of how Sassar ended up with his own meme tier is something that a lot of people don't know. Because again, if you just started watching Arkain now and you saw this and you're like, why? Again, the reality goes back really far. It really just came down to the fact that you had a hero with the flippin' lightning shield ability, which is just, it was awful, like, having to use him. It was terrible, like a worthless hero. He just died over and over and over again and provided no value. Okay. Scarlet Red Fist. No.
Before we talk about Scarlet, and it's Redka, not Red Fist, Jay. I'm happy that he put Sass back to D tier. Putting him above some of those characters that he put into D tier feels... It felt very strange, let's put it that way, and just bury the hatchet at this point.
There's no Scarlet Red Fist. This is Scarlet Redka.
Exactly.
I guess a little more interesting than Redka. At the very least, this lady got absorbed by Korra Red Fist to get one of the best abilities in the game. Avenge. So I guess that's cool. I also like that Scarlet was willing to surrender.
I guess she is part of a Red Fist now, if you want to say it that way, but that's...
It's a shame that she was then rewarded with death, but I like how when you have enemies that have some sort of practicality to their actions and they don't just fight to the last man for no reason.
Indeed.
Cellular Cleave Hand.
Poor guy.
A lot more characterization with Cellular in the true story, for sure. Sort of a sad outcome for Cellular. I think Cellular goes into B. Just because... Well, here's the thing. It's like, oh, how noble. He Largoth freed him from his mindfuckery. But... And he could have retreated, but instead, he stayed and fought. And then he lost terribly, and then he died. So, like, again, I don't feel as a player like that was a very noble or powerful move by him. I wish that he would have actually retreated and done something with himself beyond that. So I think that was a bad choice. But again, I think him being like, no, against all odds, we're going to stay and fight. And I don't know. I think maybe that was meant to be like a cool moment, but I just wish he didn't do that. Tori's, look, you are a hero, but you actually have less characterization than Dorton. You're not interesting, and you do basically nothing. Again, it is a hero. It's an allied hero. That's nice, but otherwise, just sort of a blank slate there, so we can say nah.
I can see where this is coming from. I mean, all the prince really does in the true story so far is that he is on the battlefield for his father. That's his main jam in the true story so far, you could say.
Vale, man. I'm leaning towards putting Vale higher. I think Vale even goes into A. I like the characterization we've gotten from Vale. She's a lot more interesting, and I quite like how she is. She feels like she's one of the few normal people that are on Gardon's team. Does that make any sense? Did Vale get an amulet? She's not mind-fucked, is she? I didn't...
She doesn't have an amulet, no. It just occurred to me that there is a very few characters in Sliced Bread. I mean, of course there's only going to be one character for his Orc Queen. Sliced Bread is feeling a bit empty so far, isn't it?
I think so. I think Vale and Harmos might be the only two people that support Gardon that are, like, slightly normal. Everyone else is just a sycophant or an absolute crazy, power-obsessed weirdo. So, I don't know. I quite like Vale's introduction. I like that she has a lot more characterization, sort of an explanation of where she came from, sort of humble beginnings after kind of living in the wilderness, and then she saved Prince Torres. But also her interactions with the other characters as she's been elevated into nobility again. She just seems like a decent person and a very powerful warrior. I like that.
She is, yeah.
Vanessa, easy A. Easy A. Great character, great abilities. Oh my gosh, what a strong hero that you can use. And I like that she's a voice of reason that tries to counter Rangul, for sure. Zeramak also going to be hitting A tier here. We're liking our boy Zeramak. He goes with the flow enough, but does push back when necessary. I like that. Yeah. He stands his ground up to a point. Zeramak also running one of the few clans that remains that were not bundled in under Inara because he's still alive.
True.
And I also think Zeramak has a lot of secrets that he has not shared with everybody. Or anybody.
True.
But I really like Zeramak as a character. I think he's neat. Zeren.
This is interesting. This is going to be interesting, I feel like.
I think we put Zeren in A last time, and I think he still goes in A. I like how the dwarves basically at a certain point say, you know what, all you humans are crazy, and we are the F out of here. I like how the dwarves, like, they have their morals, and they stick to them. Like Zeren said, like, I'm not just gonna casually ally myself with Gardon after I saw what he did to Solana, who was my friend.
Yeah.
You know, I guess Zeren's got several vengeance quests going on at the same time. Because of his brother, because of Solana, and I guess kind of Saphira, but not really.
Not really.
I don't know. I think the dwarves in general are a really, really powerful faction, and they're very interesting, and I think it's easy to see them as, like, supplemental in Arcane, but in reality, I think they're extremely interesting, and they're very powerful. And nobody really does a good job trying to win them over, and now I think nobody can win them over. It's too late, because the dwarves have seen all the other factions do the worst shit possible to each other, and have decided that they're just going to go it alone. And I respect that. And I think Zeren choosing to side with the Golden Guard was the right choice, but they still lost, but it was still the right choice.
Interesting, but I can see what he means there, yeah. That's, yeah.
I think they could have won, but I'm not saying like he knew he was going to lose and chose to do it anyway, like Selly or Cleavehand.
Exactly.
I think Zeren made the right choice there.
I mean, Zelior also didn't go in there expecting to die. He was ready to die if he had to, but it wasn't like he thought that he was going to die. It's not like he was suicidal, basically, but I can see where he's coming from, yeah.
Zoya, very sassy, kind of obnoxious,
but
very interesting. Extremely interesting character. Goes into the A tier. Still alive, traveling with Eale now. Could be part of weird Eale Gorthog team up.
What a weird club there.
Had to hydrate. Claire. Claire has a short story, and it's basically revealed that she's brainwashed, probably by an amulet or some sort of magic. Get put into D tier. Claire has a daughter who ends up getting close to being the significant other of one of Gardon's children.
True.
In the future. Yeah, I read the short stories. But otherwise, the fact that she has a short story is interesting, but I think, again, she's just kind of another brainwashed henchman at this point. Where else would he go?
Of course. I was. If anyone was going there, it had to be the Destroyer.
Where else would he even go? We gotta
Yeah.
zoom out a little bit. Okay. Where else would you even put this man? The Destroyer goes in sliced bread. He's a sliced bread character. He'll always be a sliced bread character. Just because he was a nobody in First Orc book, turned into one of the best characters in the true story. I think Destroyer, kind of similar to Zoya in many ways, in that just a complete wild card in many ways. And I really appreciate that. Extremely interesting. And the Destroyer is one of those characters where you just can't help but root for him to try to do the right thing. And you know what? He does! And then he dies. His arc comes to a resolution with Okri, with him wanting to be remembered. He takes down just the biggest foe possible. Fantastic. It doesn't get better than that. And the fact that he's dead means that he cannot be tarnished. Actually, I thought about this. He could be tarnished if we learn that Ishog basically brainwashed him. But as far as we know, Ishog is not using magic. He's just given really good sermons. So let's just hope it stays that way and we don't learn somehow in retrospect that the Destroyer was brainwashed.
He wasn't brainwashed. There will be no tarnishing of your favorite character. One of the favorite characters, I guess. If there's one thing that Jay is actually sad about, it's the deaths of the Destroyer and Borean the Dancing Bear.
That's the only way you could ruin him, and I hope it doesn't happen. Hortnog gets sliced bread because he's jolly. I just like him. Also, Hortnog basically spurs on everything that happens by being the one to suggest to Rangul that they should raid Red Fist's manor in the very first mission in the game. Oops. But yeah, I think Hortnog just has, like, I like his dialogue. That's pretty much it. I think he's happy. He's really close with Vanessa. And everybody likes Vanessa. Well, I mean, like, players like Vanessa. A lot of the orcs don't like Vanessa, but Hortnog does. And he saves her life by giving her the necklace that lets, or the ring or whatever, to teleport out of there when Red Fist corners them all.
Very true.
And, yeah, just in general, it's just a very likable character with the way his dialogue is written. That's really all it comes down to.
It's also a joy writing this dialogue, I can say that. Writing Hortnog is a lot of fun.
Bro, I hate Thanok. I just hate him. He's just too much of an asshole. He's just one of those characters that seems to delight in being a bad person. I know he's a dragon, but, like, we're saying he's a person. He just... I don't like it. I don't like him. D tier. Absolutely not.
I wonder how much influence a certain short story had here that describes what the black dragons do to the swamp dragons. I feel like that might have influenced Jay's opinion of both black dragons and Thanok quite a bit.
Dancing bear, he rolls around, sliced bread, easy. Clearly you could see some bias going on in the sliced bread tier. All these characters are aligned.
Yes. Of course, the rolling dancing bear is in sliced bread. I can completely see where this is coming from. It's just... it's hilarious to me if I compare Borean to Hortnog. Like, for Hortnog, I don't even know how many lines he has. And for Borean, it's like 10. This is so... but yeah, dancing and rolling is just... I can see the reasoning. Don't get me wrong.
With a certain faction. But yeah, Borean dances. It was a shame he had to go. The way I look at it is Borean was too likable, which is exactly why he had to die when he did, because the Red Fist needed a solid W to show that they were a major threat. Because they were introduced, we saw them a couple times, they were kind of scary, but now we're at the end of the campaign, and these need to be the endgame villains. And how do we show that these are the endgame villains? Well, we have them kill the most likable character. Fucking Borean. Sad stuff, man. I would have loved to see him dance one more time. Dorbrick, sad boy. I like the idea that he's, he was close with Fergan, he was close with Glenn, he was close with Cellier, kind of trained them all, so he became very depressed when they died.
Yeah.
I think he threw his life away, which was a shame.
Basically,
but
yeah.
again, you can understand why. Like, he just didn't see the point in it anymore when he saw all of his protégés be killed. So, he goes in C tier. I think, similarly, we just didn't have enough time with him. I was frustrated that he killed Gorthog the first time, though that also spurred on a lot of interesting things.
I appreciate that Jay's using all the tiers, by the way. I feel like... I wonder if he's... if I actually had added a 10th tier or something, he would actually use it for a sad boy tier now.
Ferdal. Dude, this guy goes in the BTFO category.
A character who isn't hunting the orcs? In BTFO? Is this a new age in the new age?
Because he killed Solana in cold blood and seemed like a flippin' maniac about it. So he goes in the BTFO category.
I mean, he was going to cut her into to chop her into many smaller pieces of Solana, you could say.
Fergan can go to D. He doesn't get quite F tier with Ramirius because I think Fergan has a few more lines that just make him a little more interesting to me about like the defenses of the Dead Mountain and kind of that tension that he has with Bull Regiment guy that we just placed, Dorbrick. So again, he's gone pretty early, so not much time with him, but the time we do have with him is at least a little interesting. Gardon gets a promotion, I think. He gets a big promotion. Gardon's sliced bread now. He was A tier last time, pretty sure. Gardon is sliced bread. And I'll tell you why. Because he's a lot more interesting. In the second human book, first and second human book, Gardon, from the start, was ends all justify the means, super myopic, all demons must die, any enemies must die. I will do anything it takes. True story Gardon, he's like 75% of the way there. He's that character where you're like, oh, okay, thank goodness, at least there's somebody out there who's willing to do, kind of what it takes. He's willing to go the extra mile, so I like this guy. But it's not until he has his confrontation with Praxius and Van Doors where he clearly starts to break down. Gardon goes in the sad boy category, if we had a sad boy category now. Starts drinking a lot more, and I think it was the cutscene after the end of the last end of the Golden Guard. That's when I feel like old Gardon that we used to think was always Gardon starts coming out in the true story, which is like he's sort of blind to the long-term mistakes of being like, we're going to exterminate every demon, because he's like, I think basically killing his family the way that he did in killing Praxius sort of flipped that switch where now he just doesn't care anymore. He's like, we're going to kill all the demons or we're going to die trying kind of situation.
Yeah, fighting Praxius and, killing several family members, it did not just happen without leaving any marks, you could say.
And at least that's how I interpret it. He seems a lot less tolerant of his friends and allies. Again, it's like that was the Gardon that we kind of always knew as Gardon in the book era stuff, but in the true story era stuff, I feel like Gardon has actually evolved into that, and I like that a lot. I think it's a huge, huge improvement for the character.
Glad to hear that.
Herden, he summons the guys in the forest, right? Look, Shar, I'm calling you out.
Okay.
I apologize in advance.
All right, what is this? What's happening here?
I feel like you forgot of these three guys, Tormund and Herden and Fertile. I feel like you sort of forgot which one was which. And the reason I say that is in Defensive Home, Ferdal is talking kind of like a normal guy, back and forth with Tormund, and Aridon is the one who seems like a lunatic. But then in Long Live the Queen, it's flipped, and now suddenly Ferdal is the crazy lunatic one, and Aridon and Tormund are chatting like normal people.
I definitely never messed the two up. I know who is who. I've known who is who from the beginning. I don't see where this is coming from, honestly, Jay. I'm gonna be real here.
Does that make sense? Basically, I feel like either Aridon should have been the one that killed Solana like a weirdo, or Ferdal should have been the one who was very grim in Defensive Home.
I'm not sure if I can really see this reasoning that you're making here. I'm gonna be honest here.
I don't know. Tormund seems like a kind of a normal guy. I think he came from Salir's forces. Seems, he puts up with these other two guys, but for the most part, he's fine. Aridon gets, Ferdal BTFO because he kills Solana. One of my, originally one of my more liked characters. Unfortunately, she stays in C tier now because she can't be my elven queen. But,
What's it with you and your queens, Jay? Should I be concerned? You have your orc queen, your elf queen, and I guess Maya is the undead queen. Who's next?
Even still, second human book sentiments put Ferdal in BTFO, and then Aridon, I like that he summons the druid dark forces of the forest and stuff. That's pretty cool. And then Tormund, who's a slightly nicer guy, goes into C tier.
I mean, Tormund is probably the nicest of the three. I can definitely see the ranking making a lot of sense here. Ferdal on the bottom, Tormund on top makes perfect sense of me for those three. I just don't understand the thing about how they have been mistaken for other characters. That's the only part I don't get about this. Everything apart from that, completely understandable.
Maybe my most controversial one, Inara's going in sliced bread. No matter what you think about this character, my statement about Inara is that she is the best character addition to the true story. With, almost indisputably. I can't think of another character that makes the story even remotely as interesting as she has compared to the books.
Let me think for a moment. I think that out of all new characters, not counting ones who have been changed, actually just new characters, right? I can definitely see that Inara had a lot of impact. Like, actually very, very much impact.
I just think that her impact, and it goes back all the way to, like, Act 2, is just incredible. I think that it's basically allowed Shar to mold the whole Wrath story of things to have, like, a perpetual impact much further into, even now, the very end of the campaign. And it's all been through the conduit of the character Inara. So I've made this goofy theory like Inara could be the Dark One. In reality, I don't think that's really true. I think it could be interesting if it was. I think there's some evidence that it could be true, but there's not enough to say definitively, like, oh yeah, there's a lot of hints for that. I think there was a commenter who said this in the Birth of Dominion interlude. Basically said, I think Inara in reality just kind of following Wrath's legacy of wanting to kill as many humans as possible. She used Wrath to kill Greymore, but like she never saw him as like a leader to follow. And he killed a bunch of humans, but she knew he was going to get himself killed. And then when Lokar was going to turn them around and no longer kill humans, she killed him. I guess...
Considering statements that he made in his other videos, I'm not surprised that he puts her very high. Considering how many characters she killed, backstabbed, or just... I guess in case of Gorog, you could argue that she kind of bullied him, I guess. I'm surprised that he likes her that much, because he did like Lokar, she killed him. So, for example, he wanted to see Sassar go on redemption arc, and she killed him. So, I'm not surprised per se, But I didn't think she would go to sliced bread, which is an interesting thing to see. I'm actually very intrigued by that.
My question, I think that's probably the most realistic thing, is like Inara's, the real conflict at the very, very end for the Dominion that I hope is where the payoff comes off, is like, Amari genuinely is trying to get to a peaceful age for the Dominion, and Inara's like, no, we should just keep fighting. Like, we should just keep going to war with the kingdoms and Joinor and whatever. Because I want to kill people because they tortured me. And I feel like that might be the straw that breaks the camel's back with Amari's relationship with Inara. Because I think she's gotten what she needs from Inara, which is the subservience of the other major clans. And Sassar dead. So now I think maybe she doesn't see herself as needing Inara as much, and if Inara starts pushing back, that might be the split that happens. I'm not so sure, though. It's also possible Inara just kind of hangs out and is her right-hand lady past the true story. I don't know. But that's why I like her so much. She's a wild card. Like my boy, the Destroyer, and kind of Zoya. It seems like just a kind of wild card that shows up and just does stuff and changes things drastically in the story at random times. And I really appreciate that. So even if I don't love that she killed Lokar, I don't love that she killed Sassar, but I have to absolutely appreciate her just sheer momentum added to the story. I think it's just great. I think Logan's story has been practically abandoned in the true story. I don't know if he actually has less scenes. At least prior to Risen Resistance, I think he had the same number of scenes, but they were so spread out you practically forget about them, and then he's not in Risen Resistance anymore, which is a big moment for him. So, like, in the past, Logan might even go A or B at worst, but now I think Logan's just a C-tier character. In fact, he might even go lower because we don't really know what he's doing or what he's up to.
Yeah, that's a problem with Logan, honestly, at least in the context of a true story. His scenes have been so spread out. I've been talking about this with Jay in the past. It's not that he got any less screen time, it's more that so spread out because the true story is so much bigger than the second orc book was, that you don't feel as connected to him as you did, because he's still not a very present character. And yeah, he didn't appear in Risen Resistance, that's very much true. Instead, Dorbrick appeared and died.
You know? Lord Marin? Lord Marin's a B character. Technical genius. Generally doesn't seem to really care, about much except tinkering with his cool ships and airships and prides of humanity and the cannon and stuff. But, solid Golden Guard character. Seems to actually kind of care about Van Doors, I should say. Loyal. But otherwise, also, even B tier is kind of high for this character. We just don't have enough time with him. But I like him quite a bit. Reynold, you go sliced bread, my man. That's where you belong.
Just like last time.
Everybody hated Reynold when he was introduced in Second Human Book, especially because originally Shar had a cutscene where Reynold kills Gardon. That's a mistake. This is, I don't know. Sentiments might be the same now. They might be different. But at the time, everybody loved Gardon. I clearly still really like Gardon. He's in sliced bread tier. But at the time, Gardon was like everybody's absolute favorite character by a mile. And then Shar was like, hey, here's Van Doors, and now Gardon's dead. And then everyone was like, oh, Van Doors, and people would call him Van Douche, and stuff like that. Again, this is from years and years ago.
Not entirely correct. That was never a serious video. It was never canon. I think it was an April's Fool's joke back in the day. It definitely never was canon. That's 100% certain. And he was already disliked, not because of the cinematic. He was disliked because his original entry, that was also in the true story, just changed a lot. Very basically was being an absolute asshole. He was introduced as this character who nobody was going to like because he's just so unlikable in his attitude.
But then, as the Second Human Book kind of strolled along and you started learning more about what the Golden Guard were doing, and you're like, okay, I don't like them. And you're like, okay, I don't like them, and that's kind of on track for what I expected. But then the talk happens where... Van Durs is like, I realize I made a mistake and I'm sorry. And you're like, what? And it was...
It was that, it was also the chapter before. One of the chapters before, I should say. Where you could actually play as him, and he basically punched Jennifer's into a bloody pulp. That was the first step towards his redemption. And the talk was then basically the second step, when he kind of showed that he realized he made mistakes.
Like, ever since that moment, and then you have the opportunity to play as the Golden Guard. Dude, the second human book ending with Uncorrupted Eale and the Golden Guard choice, that was the best second human book ending. Easily. No question. I would rather take that over Iron Fist Gardon winning any day, but it's not a choice anymore. Anyway, just the fact that Reynault was willing to come forward and admit his mistakes, just really added a ton of depth and complexity to the character. His interactions with his kids, yeah, I really liked him. I think he asked for too much from Gardon, and honestly, I feel like it was kind of Gardon's fault for not trying to even counter at all. Gardon was like, you know what? No, you asked for too much, so F you, we're gonna kill you. Instead, I wish Gardon could have been like, you know, I will camp sort of close to you, but not attack you. I will camp close enough such that you cannot shoot me with your cannon, because I'm like within minimum range or something. But I will witness you use it against the demons, and then you leave. if you know, and you can step off with my relationship with Brian and necromancers and shadow magic. That's off the table.
I understand what he's saying here, that Gardon should have tried to bargain, but Gardon was definitely not in the mood or believed that he could bargain with someone who had betrayed him the way Van Durs betrayed him.
But I will not kill you. You know? We don't have to throw all these soldiers' lives away, and then you can go back and do whatever you want with the Emperor. But that was off the table, apparently. Dude, our boy Tremolon. Killed. Like, actually dead. You hate to see it. Goes in B category. I just like how he would just randomly narrate major battles as he was in them.
I mean, he writes in the battles as well.
Very charming. Mr. Whitefield with the angriest portrait on the planet. Man, I don't know where this guy goes. I do like a good redemption arc. Whitefield was actually in a few different cinematics pretty early on. As like the Pyru general. I think realistically this guy's going to go in like a C tier. Maybe a B tier. Again, I do really like it when characters, quote, make the right choice. And that means coming under my command when I'm the player character.
Oh, that's what right means, okay.
So we'll go B tier. Mr. Chevron doesn't even really have a mind anymore. He's just sort of an Eale henchman. Tempting to put him in D. Probably in C, because actually, like, we learn his whole backstory and stuff, and he actually seems kind of remorseful at the time, too, which again, adds some depth to the character before he's pretty much gone forever. I mean, the character isn't gone, but, like, his personality is gone, so.
Yeah, he's basically
Dude, Ishag. Yeah. Oh, look.
Another S tier?
I'm not going to put him in sliced bread. I should, but I'm not. I'm not going to put Ishag in sliced bread. Ishag goes in B tier.
What?
He's not an A tier. Look, he's done good work for my orc queen, but he, you know, he's like a televangelist. Okay, I'm not a big fan. I don't think Amari needed a religion to solidify her hold over the orcs and such. I don't think that was necessary. So, I don't love the whole Shadocracy thing. I think it's in there just to make us feel a little spooky about Amari's methods, but it's kind of one of those where I'm like, I don't think this is necessary.
The thing is not that. It's definitely not in there just to make the player antagonize Amari. The thing is more that Amari is thinking that she needs to think long-term. She needs to see what happens after the war. And that those many different races need to stand united and stand united behind her. in order to do that, she gives them more reasons, quote unquote, to be united. It's not like I'm just adding that religion just so alienate the player. That would be absolutely nonsensical. I know you're not saying that I am Jay.
Gardon didn't need to make a religion. I mean, he had to mind control some people. Never mind. The point is, I think Amari commands respect because she's saved countless numbers of these factions. She hired the goblins to save pretty much all the orcs. She saved the gnolls. She saved the centaur. She paid the goblins. She saved the dark trolls. They couldn't have stayed in the forest. The Iron Fists were encroaching on them and sparking rebellions. She did not save the bearmen, to be fair, but the bearmen were saved. Okay, moving on. Jadira. I mean, I like that she's very... I like the asterisk smiles, asterisk, you know? Like someone's like yelling about something and she's like, oh, okay. That'll be $10. You know, very mercantile.
True.
You go into C tier, whatever. She's neat. Marinogen, very interesting character. You go into A, you used to lead the Soul Eater Legion. That's pretty neat. That's pretty interesting. We get little tidbits about Marinogen as his time as a demon leader. We don't know exactly why he left, but he's living the high life. Look, this is... To me, it's very obviously like a self-insert of Shar Dundred. Mr. Capitalism himself. Look, I will eat my hat, or whatever people wager these days as a meme, if anything bad happens to Marinogen. This dude's just gonna live on behind the scenes and make money for literally ever, and there will never be any negative consequences on him. I pretty much guarantee it. That being said, it's really interesting to see these other forces at work in Arkain, you know, through the Goldax clan. I think the Blackthorn, which is like a mercenary group that forms post-True Story, is going to be a mix of Derek's mercenaries and the Goldax clan, probably ran by Marinogen, and possibly a still-alive Derek or Logan. That's my guess, and I'm going to be honest as well, I stole that from a commenter who said that, but I read it and I was like, absolutely. Zelik, BTFO. BTFO, my Orc Queen. Edward...
I mean, Feridal is in there, but apart from him, everyone who's in PTFO is just anti-Amari, I guess.
You also, BTFO, what are you doing just charging into a base, getting yourself killed, and then making everybody really upset? Why did you do that? Mistake. All of the Van Doors kids, though, like... Fiona seems a little sassy, but she's only got a few lines. Flavius... You get to use him so he can go one tier higher, and then Richard, you can go next to your sister. Valerie's a weirdo, right? The thing with Valerie and like the lore that we read about the Angelics, it seems like it's dropping some hints to set up something about the Angelics. Maybe it's like they draw their power from something far more sinister than it appears. That's my guess. And then the short story with Praxius where he's saved by Nysara, who is a succubus who takes the form of an angelic. It makes me wonder if maybe the angelic's power is actually demon magic? But I don't think so. I think the light magic is different than the demon magic, distinctly. for reasons that occur in the same short story with Praxius. I don't know. Dark Fang, D tier. I feel like we have more characters in D than any other tier.
Exactly. I will say the Van Durst kids would probably be kinda outraged to be in the same tier as Sass or Pentis that you hate so much, Jay.
I mean, like, if you look at who's in this tier, though, and for the sheer number of characters, I think it's kind of only fair that you kind of have a tier of, like, characters, you know? Okay, these two are very easy. Eliminator and Ori both go in the BTFO tier. Eliminator going after my boy Destroyer, and Ori for going after Eale and Amari.
And for turning Borean into a coat, or at least wanting to put him into, make him into a coat.
Is this the final? Is this the list? Is this the final list? I gotta look over this a little bit. Looking at D tier, I think this is absolutely appropriate. F tier, similarly, these characters just... I'd almost put Queerness in D because we have a little more time with her, but I just don't like her. Like, Queerness and Redcar are very similar in the same way. Like, they're just, you know...
I guess he did get to control Pantis, and that's why he likes her more. I guess that's fair. It still surprises me, since he absolutely does not like her.
Kind of throwaway characters. Queerness has her own little short story, though. That's nice. But yeah, these guys, I feel like... I was about to say the story could exist without them, but that's not true. Like, Renova, Queerness, Retka, necessary. Edoras, Horgar, and Torres, not necessary. And then, obviously, Flesh Terror and Margazar. So, like, I would consider, though, it's a very small number considering the amount that's here of characters that I would say are, like, superfluous. So... and it's not bad to have superfluous characters. I should be clear. I think the ones that I have in Sass tier are ones that I just see as like these characters could have been others that could characterize better characters more, if that makes sense. Whereas like F tier is just like sometimes you just need some extra characters and that's fine. Like man, I don't know. Like we could move Brockta up to B, Grella up to B. But otherwise, like, my B tier kind of, like, lieutenants are okay. Because I feel like if you look at Khazardius and you look at Flamidus, like, two very they fill similar roles, if that makes sense. Like, similar narrative roles, I should say. But then C tier, we also have, like, Wrath, Solana. These are characters where, like, it's not because they're meh, it's because I have things that pull me severely in both directions, and it just sort of snaps them right into the middle. Hard to say. And my BTFO tier is for fun. I don't even know where I would put these characters realistically, but this is my tier list, and that's where they go.
Yeah.
Okay. We got a lot of orc characters in the sliced bread and A tier. But hey, no, we've got 2 humans. We have 2 humans in sliced bread. Brian's kind of a human, right?
I mean,
Borean's a bear.
I mean, Brian is more human.
And he rolls around.
Gorog.
I'll remind you. I think we have a really nice spread here. Obviously, I'm pretty biased
He used to roll J. He's dead.
towards the orcs, but we have some orcs that are, you know, towards the bottom too. But we also don't have any orc characters in the absolute bottom tier except Gran. Right? Yeah, I think so. And then you have like Sassar and Dogran down here.
To be fair, from the orc, if you only focus on the orc characters, then yeah, Sassar is kind of the lowest tier, not counting Gran. That's along with Dogran, who doesn't have much personality in the true story. Yeah.
I would love to hear Shar Dundred's reaction to my Sassar placement. I'm really excited about it.
I can understand that he's next to Pantis. Okay, I've already talked about this. Okay, we don't have to talk about it again.
Again, I sort of headcanoned my way to putting him there, but Sassar has actual plot impact now, and he's not just a meme, so he doesn't go in his own tier anymore. Yeah, going through these, I mean, I do really like Salamar. He's an A-. Salamar's a B+ A- character. The thing about Ishzog that's interesting to me is I wonder, I could see a post-True Story arc being formed on the Shadocracy religion, kind of gaining its own independence and power structure that starts pushing back against Amari and asserting itself.
Okay.
as less of a tool for her and more of its own thing that challenges her. I definitely can see that potentially being a thing. Again, we're so close to the end of the campaign, I'm starting to imagine what's going to happen after. But we're not even done with the true story yet.
True. Not yet.
All right, yeah, this is my list. I'm actually really happy. I look at my sliced bread tier. Everybody in there, without a doubt. And my A tier is pretty solid. I'm very happy with all these characters. A lot of these either extremely impactful or very, very interesting characters, which is what makes them very likable to me. Huh, okay, we did it. An hour 30. Jeez. Yeah, it's time to wrap this up. Thanks, everyone, for joining me. I feel like I had fewer memes this time.
I mean, the entire BTFO tier was a meme, right? But yeah, it was, yeah. I really enjoyed watching this. I'm just gonna say this out here. In spite of everything that we've said, this is all, of course, in good humor, right? Everything is fine. Except for Sass not being in Sass tier.
Memes and dreams than the last one, but this was serious business, okay? I remember last time I had a who is this tier. I know who every single one of these motherfuckers is in great detail this time. Oh, Ramirez? You mean the general of the Dragon Regiment who used to report directly to Van Doors, but has since branched off and no longer has to? But he's the one that reports in and says that the orcs are encroaching?
Lore Master Jayborino reporting.
Yeah, I remember. I know. Okay, that's it. I'll see everyone later. Bye.